Hey everyone, welcome back to the range. My name is Matt, and if you can see him in the background, that's Deacon. We have a body armor demo to do today. In full transparency, Al over at Stealth Armor Systems sent this panel over for me to destroy with no strings attached. Our model for destruction today is the R.A.N.G.E 2022 4+ model. What makes this unique is that there are a bunch of circular discs that make up the strike face on here, and because each one of those discs is somewhat overlapping, it makes this plate very, very flexible. Pretty much can curve to all of your body's needs. Now on the flip side, this thing weighs 8.2 pounds or 3.719 kilograms. It is approximately 1.38 inches thick, rather thick, or 35 millimeters for those across the pond. Around 15 years ago, another body armor company called Pinnacle actually tried to sell a version of this to the United States military, and there were a bunch of different failure points that the military didn't end up picking it up. And somewhere along the way, Stealth Armor Systems, Al, has picked up this technology and essentially, quote unquote, perfected it or fought past its shortcomings to reintroduce it into a more effective piece of body armor. Now, if you're a newcomer to the channel, here comes a long-winded speech. Over here, we do all of our body armor testing completely different than everyone else on YouTube. Since this is rifle armor, we shoot at 45 feet. We also shoot at 0 degrees because that represents a worst-case scenario. We also use a giant clay briefcase filled with Roma Plastilina #1 clay that acts as our compressible media to put the body armor up against so we can see what back face could be. In order to certify the clay, you have to heat it up to around 100 degrees and you drop a ball on it, and that's just adding time and materials out here. So we're just looking for a representation of what back face could be. If we see something crazy in a stoppage of like 70 millimeters in official NIJ testing clay, that would be a failure. We also use a chronograph whenever possible. We have a Pro-Chrono Pal Digital DLX because we need to know the velocity of the bullet as it strikes the armor. Since this employs a ceramic strike face, we've gone ahead and dropped it on its face 2 times as a preconditioning test. Since these little circular discs move independently of each other, there's no real way for me to listen for any cracks. So what we've done is after we do our drop test, we mark a DT on the plate and then we mark a TQ, meaning that it's passed our torque test. And finally, we put a spreadsheet here at the beginning that we kind of list all the threats that we're going to shoot at it. We mark our velocities and our penetrations, so in the end you can see a nice little summarized view. And we also do a tear down so you guys can see what the guts of these plates look like. As a reminder, I am not an NIJ lab and I don't pretend to be one. I try to hold some of those constants out here to the best of my ability so you guys can take solid data away from it. So if you guys see me stop a threat or a threat penetration, you should always defer to the manufacturer to produce accredited NIJ lab test results for those threats. And on the flip side, if you see me stop some kind of insane threat out here against your plate, you should send that off to an accredited lab and have that added as a special threat to your panel. Before I went ahead and destroyed our R.A.N.G.E panel, I wanted to just give a brief overview on how it actually wears inside a plate carrier for those that are curious. Since it is somewhat flexible, it actually will hug your body fairly well. We still have good mobility, side to side. We're not really restricted from any free-flowing movement there. And this is a thicker and heavier panel, but in this plate carrier, which is from Al, it seems to fit fairly well. I'll give you a side profile here. You can see that it actually rides up against your chest. It's not like some of the single curve where you've got like this space here. It sits nicely because it wants to pull back this way. It probably would fit a little better if I tighten these side straps, but I haven't gone ahead and done that. The back is one of his Hexar flexible 3+ plates, so it fits pretty darn well. Not sure how it will fit in other plate carriers. I'm not sure if he has a compatibility matrix in there, but being 1.38 inches thick, I'd say it fits this plate carrier pretty darn good. We've got our R.A.N.G.E strapped up and we're ready to throw the hate his way. We have 2 threats, our M2 armor piercing at the NIJ spec velocity or very close to it. It seems I had this load dialed in, and then I think the change in temperature, humidity, and all that stuff have bumped it up to be on the upper end of the spectrum. And I also have a +P+ variant, which should be over 3,200 feet per second. This is a 163 grain full metal jacket with an armor piercing core, 63 or 60 to 63 on the Rockwell hardness scale. Again, we have a 300 Winchester Magnum 24-inch barrel. Now, Al isn't sure if this plate needed the level 3A backer or not, or if it was standalone. So he included it, so we'll use it just to see what it's going to do. Now, because this plate employs all those little discs, in theory, like tile array plates, we should be able to place a shot up here and the tile down here should be unaffected. And based on our prior dealings with Stealth Armor Systems, he overbuilds the crap out of things, so all of those tiles shouldn't shift around. Looks like we were a little over spec there. Then our plus P plus variant. Very good velocity off that guy. All right, let's go see what we did. All right, folks, shot number 1 was right here, and then shot number 2 was right there. Those are considered fair hits. Al rates this plate at a pretty high standard with some M993, so I think maybe we'll shoot 338 Lapua at it. I did have to put a couple board or pieces of brick down here to keep this propped up because of the 3A backer. Place those bets in the comments below as I whip myself with the straps. Hey, no pass-through, folks. Now, look at our dimples there. Ho, ho. So, if we were looking at assessments of these, our standard pressure is 40 millimeters. Then our plus P plus variant is right around about 40 millimeters on that one. Although, as you can see, the amount of trauma is spread out in a larger surface area, but we're not getting a huge dimple in there. Very respectable performance with our 3A backer there. Nice. Let's see what else we can throw with this guy. We've got our 338 Lapua. This is our Swiss PAP, a 260 grain full metal jacket with a tungsten core in it. It's the exact same core, weight, shape, and design as the 196 Swiss PAP. I think that's VPAM 11, if I remember right around 2,700 feet per second. We've got Mr. Armor Piercing himself in 7.62 by 5.1 millimeters, or 7.62 NATO, or 308 Winchester. This is NAMO M993 Armor Piercing, an official armor piercing threat from the U.S. Army. 130 grains with a tungsten core. Very, very nasty. To date, only some really high-end plates such as the XAPI and the Colossus plates have stopped this, along with some of Al's plates as well. We've got our 24-inch Savage Axis 110 Tactical. Got a Crimson Trace Hardline Pro scope up top. Baby. Home run. We're going to hit this with Mr. Incendiary. This is our M14A1 Armor Piercing Incendiary. It's a late World War II round, originally in 30-06. Its core is very similarly shaped to M993's core, but it's only made out of steel, and it has lots and lots of incendiary compound in it, so it makes a very bright flash, catches things on fire. We've loaded it in 300 Winchester Magnum to full spec, so we should see over 3,200 feet per second from this. Brought out the 300 Win Mag again. All right, so this should be on the right side of the plate. There's a little circle.
So much fire, so satisfying.
We'll finish out our 30 cal segment with one more specialty round. This is M80A1. This is the U.S. Army's current issue ball round in 7.62 NATO. 130 grains, copper core, hardened arrowhead steel tip. Not as hard as M855A1, right around 50 to 51 on the C scale. But again, we've got it loaded in our 300 Win Chad. We've seen velocities over 34 to 3,500 feet per second from this combo. Wowzers, 3,500 plus, yeah. All of our ducts are in a row. Our Swiss PAP was down here. Our M993 was right here. Our M14A1 API was right here. And then down here in this carnage was the M80A1 plus P plus variant. Depending on how this does, I think maybe we could finish this plate off with a barrage of 5.56 threats. Place those bets in the comments below. I'm very curious on how the 338 Lapua shot did. We were a little under spec. I think we should see around 2,900 feet per second from that. So around 27 is adding some range there. Uh-oh, Raggy. Now, we have a penetration from the Swiss PAP in the initial plate and the M80A1. As far as the M993 goes, we will have to confirm in a second. Let's just peel that away. Kind of looks like it was stopped. Then here is our 3A backer. So Swiss PAP, the M80A1. Row, no pass through, folks. It would be very beneficial if you purchase this and you want an ultimate AP protection. Definitely wear our 3A backer behind it. You know, any quality 3A backer. This one is his razor line made out of the higher end ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, and he sews the edges. Very impressive performance from this plate. Now the back face on that corner shot is pretty excessive, but that's a corner shot, and that's why the NIJ usually doesn't shoot in the corners. 52 millimeters, the plus P plus M14, 53 millimeters. So back face becomes a concern, but in official NIJ lab testing, they're normally spaced right in a line like this, and they measure after each shot, but for brevity's sake, we're not gonna do that. So interesting that we're stopping a 338 Lapua round at 45 feet. So again, add some distance and that velocity is gonna drop. This plate has already stopped some amazing threats, and at this point, it's time to be a little mean to it to see how well it holds up to lots of threats. We've got our 22-inch TC compass with a turbo 5.56 up front. We've got the primary arms scope as well. We've got M855A1. This is the U.S. Army's current issue ball round. It's the enhanced performance round, evolution of M855. Copper core for lead-free friendly, and a large hardened arrowhead steel tip. Good warm velocity today. Shots of our M855A1, number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We took the cover off because it was kind of pointless at this point in the testing. No pass-through, folks. I didn't expect there to be any. As mentioned, each one of those little discs, in theory, could take a shot, and with the way Al builds plates, we'll get this torn down to the best of our ability when we get a second. But you can see each disc right here. So depending on how you were shooting this, it could take a lot of threats. And then people have concerns about when it's flexed about taking shots, but these are overlapping. So, you know, that's something that I don't want to really get into is angle shots. Al would have to have an NIJ lab do those different angles, but fairly impressive. Now for a lot of followers' favorite part, the tear down, where we do our best to tear some of these plates down to see what the guts look like with Al's overbuilt construction. Sometimes that's not easy. It took me about 10 minutes to tear this guy apart. Here is our outer covering, just, you know, a nylon type covering. Here is our strike face foam to protect against any drops, although I don't know if that's much of a concern with this flexible array, but I measured it right around 119 thousandths thick. It's a high density foam, not too shabby there. As far as our backing material, we have ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, Dyneema SB117 or something. I measured its total thickness right around 398 thousandths, and as confirmed, the only penetrations were the M80A1 and the Swiss P AP. But you can see how close that round was to the edge. I probably bunched it up from those shots. Because this is a flexible plate, this is not pressed. We are sewn on the outer perimeter edges, but when I mentioned being able to thumb through layers like a book, that's what I mentioned right there in prior videos. Again, it has to be flexible, so it can't be rigid. There's the front of our panel. There's that Plus P Plus M2 AP shot. You can see the core there, and some more of the core material on that one. M993 shot was right there, and then that Plus P Plus of the M80A1 was, I would consider that a fair hit, but it was pretty close to the edge. Here are our discs that make up our dragon skin. They are laminated. This is an outer fiberglass-like covering that's got lots of cool adhesive on it. I measured the total thickness of these around 310 thousandths, then the laminating layer right around 80 thousandths altogether. So these discs probably at the edge, they do come up in the middle, probably right around 230 thousandths thick. Not too bad. Then we've got our aramid or Kevlar-like material that makes up more of a laminating and maybe a I'm not sure what the proper term is, but it keeps the tiles where they're supposed to be. It's almost like a bag. A bag is a better term. This is on the back side, and then the polyethylene looks like it actually slips in between this layer, and you can see all the discs that still remain in there. And obviously, you know, I shot a lot of threats at these and it's starting to come apart, but from a majority of it, all those tiles are still there. I did cut open there. Here's another tile. Very, very interesting design. The shortcomings of the original dragon skin, I think, were due to some of the adhesives, and Al has worked, you know, over the last 10 or 15 years to better perfect this particular design. May not be for everybody, but if you're looking for a plate that's capable of stopping M993 and some other nasty AP threats, and more than just one or two of them before the strike face degrades, this is something to consider. I'm not sure if these are boron carbide, silicon carbide, or some advanced mixture, but being able to stop M993 with a thickness of only around 230 thousandths is pretty darn amazing. And that's all there is, folks.
Well, Al, simply another amazing plate that you've built here. Our Dragon Skin 2022 4 Plus did very well against all of our threats, including M993, our tungsten core 338 Lapua Magnum, as well as a tirade of other armor-piercing threats. And after all that, we still were able to stack some 5.56 threats on here, and our cool little overlapping ceramic discs contain them without issue. As I mentioned throughout the video, this is a thicker and heavier plate than other level 4 offerings. The advantage is that it can be as many curves as you want because it is flexible, so that extra girth may not come at a disadvantage. As far as cost goes, I'm not sure what this particular model will run, but I'll put a link to Al's website in the description below. With all that being said, it's time for me to get the heck out of here because it's movie night and it's Sunday and the bugs are coming out. But at the end of all my videos, I take a moment to thank all those who help make these possible. Number one is my Patreon and Subscribe Star fans. I have a link tree in the description below with various different ways to contact me or support me. I have affiliate links for like the Gators Eyewear or My Medic. You know, I use a lot of their Band-Aids when I cut myself out here. Or even if you're looking at picking up ammo or guns from PSA, you can always send me a DM and I can generate you an affiliate link. And that earns me a sales commission, and what I do with that is put it right back in the channel, procuring weird ammunition or, you know, 200 pounds of clay for our back face. Number two is Al Bain over at Stealth Armor Systems, who in full transparency provided me with that Dragon Skin 2022 to destroy with no strings attached. And of course, number three is you all for watching. Until next time, I'll catch you at the range.